30 seconds. That
Well,
clock's wrong.
we deliberately put that back.
That's 5 minutes later.
You did make it though.
All right, are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I call the order of the meeting of Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. Can I have a moment of silence for all those serving inside and outside our borders, please? All right, will you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we have roll call, please, Mary?
Mayor Adrian Sandoval.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark.
Here.
Mike Halper.
Here.
Nick Ralston.
Here.
Spencer Brednan.
Here.
Fred Blum.
Here.
Jeremiah Overman.
Here.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. All right, audience participation. We don't have anybody, so I'm going to say that's a no. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the October 6, 2020 regular meeting of the board, the September paid bills, and the cancellation of the October 21st, 2020 budget study session tomorrow night.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Action items. Audit proposal selection. Mr. Incan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. On your desk is a one-page snapshot of the proposal. I forgot to get ready for the packet. It shows a comparison of the 5 proposals that were received, product and services, annual cost for a 5-year agreement. That's what we're asking for. And then a brief synopsis. Also did a synopsis in my written report to the board on each firm that I spoke to. Essentially, after talking to David Green, I've known this for the years I've been town manager. All the audit firms just have the same credentials and background for the most part. They have to complete audits. They vary in approach, the style, the process that they go through, and of course the cost. Since 2016, the town's contract with Cliff Morris and Allen, which they've also submitted a proposal, as you can see, which I have the proposals if you want to read them. They're pretty straightforward. That they do the basic requirements to the audit for a fee and a cost. Of the 5 that I interviewed, the Adams Group and Haney Company are the 2 that impressed me the most. They're both smaller firms for the most part. Adams Group definitely is. Haney Company, they started off in Salt Lake City. They've expanded in Colorado, I think Utah and New Mexico. The Prospective Business Solutions, nice conversation, but looking at their resume, basically they focused on school district audits. It's still government accounting, but it's not municipal. Fiscal Focus Partners and CLA, much larger organization. I think CLA is probably the largest. They're a nationwide firm. And I put down some of the towns that they audit. Cliff Morris and Allen does, Fort Leavenworth, Weaver, Littleton, of course. Fiscal Focus, some other local communities like Lock, Bootyton, and Severance. But even the Adams Group does Elizabeth, Lyons, and Craig. They're a small firm. One thing that impressed me most about them is that they strive to assign the same audit reviewer annually to your audit so they become familiar with you. What I've experienced over the years is I see new faces, which is fine on a checks and balance, but then it's like retraining every time. It's easy for me because I can joke with them better because they don't know me yet, but other than that, it's neither here or there. But one thing I'm asking the board tonight to do is I'm asking to change firms from Cliff Morris and Allen, which I've worked well with. They're fine. This stemmed several months ago when David Green and I was talking as we go into the budget that as we've not reduced, but we've streamlined our budget process with less funds, we should not be paying more money to do the same audit. In reality, the way audits work, if they have less funds to audit, we should be paying less money. That's not the case. The Adams Group, the one caveat about that is 3 of the last 4 years with Clifton Larson Allen. There's a gentleman that's been working for them, and he did our audit review last year. He didn't do the field work, but he did the review of the field work. He had left Clifton Larson Allen, and he joined Adams Group. So he's part of their team. Eric Miller is his name, which I get along fine with. He's pretty straightforward. But even though Eric would be assigned again, technically, to our audit, the partner from the Adams Group would be the one overseeing his work. And there's 2 general partners in the group. So it comes down to, in my mind, we're going to get the same product for from all 5 firms. But I'm asking the board to essentially cut $7,000, $7,000 to $9,000 out of the budget by going with a different firm, getting a fresh start. Keeping with Eric Miller is still be a fresh start because his work will be reviewed by new partners on a new firm. So that's my long-winded synopsis. Any questions you may have?
Your recommendation is that Adams?
I am recommending the Adams Group. Hayden Company was right there with the Adams Group the more I thought about it. I felt more comfortable with the Adams Group. Just the interview with Hayden Company, it was all phone interviews. And I joked with all 5 firms, I was tired of Zoom, Teams, everything. I don't even see what you look like, doesn't matter to me. And actually the interviews went better. There was no technical difficulties, didn't care what you looked like. We just had a candid conversation about the work they did, the firms, and mostly their approach. They do a pre-audit work, which David Green prepares along with Mary and Devin a bunch of documentation from this year, which prepare. We send to them in advance, then they do their 1 to 2 weeks field work in the spring. We're supposed to, we're required to send the final audit to the state by July, so we usually put that from the board in May. And all 5 firms were comfortable meeting that deadline, because sometimes that can be pretty tough. We don't close out the year until February, because there's always a month lag on invoices and expenditures, so to speak, mostly invoices. So, but yes, that is a group of I'm recommending to the board. My mic wasn't on, but I can repeat that speech, okay?
Move to approve an agreement for services for financial audit with the Adams Group, subject to legal review, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Mike Halpern,
Aye.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan,
Aye.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Jeremiah Overman,
Aye.
Larry Clark.
All right.
All right. Welcome, Adams Group.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on. To be Engineering Services RFP. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. Similar to what we just did with the audit firms. As you all know by now, Mr. Thayer is a long-time engineer. We asked him this since 1988. He's just providing engineering services to KVN, and then last year to engineering while at KVN. I feel after that many years, we really need to take a look at engineering services. Not that I have any issue with Northern Engineering, I really don't. Had a conversation, David and I met with Brad Curtis, who is essentially our contact now with Northern Engineering. I've known Brad Curtis for many years. He used to be the engineer and the public works director for Fort Morgan years ago, which he was the one that spearheaded their downtown revitalization, which interests me quite a bit. That they control their own roads, excel, power, everything. It's their story. I'd like to see what's out there. Over the last couple of years, I've had various engineering firms approach me, give me their cards, saying, hey, we'd be interested in paying for services. The nice thing about Northern Engineering is I call it kind of a one-stop shopping, because they have a survey crew, they have different levels of engineers participating in the firm. But there's other firms that provide the same thing. For example, we subcontract with 2 other firms right now. One is Civil Resources for the energy park, which we're finishing 1 lot, and that group pretty much will be done. And then JVA. JVA also offers civil engineering services, so I anticipate if we do this, which I'm asking you to, they'll probably submit a proposal. So there's other firms out there. So I'm just asking your permission to submit this. And more than likely, with the holiday season coming up, I'll probably advertise here starting the end of next week. I don't have a proposal RFP ready yet. I've never had one, so I'll be drafting that. And then December, early January, probably be presenting it to you for selection. It could be Northern Engineering, but we may change. Okay. That's all I have on that one.
On engineers, so when we do we do like a contract with them, or is it job specific? We're just saying that you are our engineer for our town for the next year or for two. Is there like a fee to have them be our main engineer?
Similar to legal and planning, those three are very similar as far as our contracts. We're going to ask them to be the town's engineering firm, and they'll do most of our civil engineering, work with Dave and I on different projects. And then when we do specific projects, such as Reynolds Avenue, like with Northern Engineering, we typically will go with them since they're already on staff. But like the Energy Park, we had a potential conflict because a partner of KBN was representing the Energy Park people. Steve, the other partner, was with us. Even though it wasn't a legal conflict, we decided to contract out specifically with another engineering firm for that specific purpose. Same with JVA for wastewater. Even though Northern Engineering does do wastewater as far as engineering, JVA was our firm that we selected. So it depends. But on a day-to-day basis, it'll be that firm. I'm going to ask for a primary engineer, which Dave and I like one engineer to speak, but then they have other engineers based upon need, like Steve Lund, Northern Engineering. He's their surveyor. I met him for the first time last week. You know, so it's a team approach. Engineering really is.
So we'll be paying a monthly fee to the engineer we pick, engineer company.
I'm going to ask him for an hourly rate structure.
Okay.
Which is typically what I do with planning and legal as well. So we're going to have your primary engineer, what his or her hourly rate is, and then depending on, for example, with Ken, our town attorney, she has paralegals and other attorneys in her office that get paid much less than her because she's a partner. So I want their rates as well. Anybody who may be doing work for the town. Yeah, good question. So it won't be a flat amount.
Bless you. Bless you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, I entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve solicitation of proposals from qualified engineering firms.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, moving on to 100 North Division Boulevard sale discussion. Mr. Rankin.
This was a tough one for me to present to the board. I'm actually not asking you to do anything tonight specifically except consider this. This is 100 North Division, it's the Diners property. And timing is everything. You know, we just, about to set a budget, we're looking at reserves. Linda Moorhead, who's the sister, her and her sister Susan Dinas, or the daughters who were, so they basically gave me this buyer's packet. They're not advertising it, they're not using a realtor. Asking for $500,000. It's a 5-acre parcel, small home with a basement, has a well. Linda sent me some information and research, which I haven't yet, but it's a Class B irrigation well, number 1187. I've asked Dave to look that up for me. But last year she had 10.5 acre foot of quota, which is pretty nice. But it's something that we've kicked around off and on as far as expanding the community center, the senior center, the ball fields, establishing a community garden. There's a well right there. Timing is not the best right now, but I think this would be a one-time deal because whoever buys it will probably keep it. I don't know for a fact. It's a guessing game. But I mainly want to let you know this opportunity is here. Probably won't last very long. So
Unincorporated Will County.
this is in Will County. This is one of those enclaves in town limits at 5 acres. Yep. So, but I know there's some interest on the property. They're asking $500,000. I think that's low for the type of property it is with the irrigation well.
What's the value of the water?
That I couldn't tell you on the value of water on the well. I mean, all water is valuable. I don't know what the price is though.
I mean, we were leasing 3 years ago, we leased some shares, I believe that was GMS well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
we were leasing some shares at $300 a share for the year, or $300 an acre foot for the year, but the person that was leasing that to the town was making us a good deal intentionally, so I don't know if the normal rate would be $400 or $500 a share to lease that.
Yeah, I think ownership rights and lease rights are much different, because on the ditch, we lease it annually to show somebody use for $50-60 an acre foot, really. Which comes next is a couple $1,000 annually. But it's actually valued over $4.5 million. Depends on how you look at it.
And the town could lease the house if we acquired the property in between times? And that's not gonna provide any legal challenge, is it, for the town?
I would say no.
Word?
I would say no simply because Milliken, when they built their new PD, they leased out their old PD as a coffee shop. So I have talked to an attorney, but I know that as a fact. The town did lease out property for rent. I don't want to be a property manager, but whatever the board decides.
It appears, from just driving by, that the west boundary of the property, is it shared with the town's ball fields?
Correct.
And all the way down Reynolds to the community center, the property is
correct.
Also.
Correct.
It goes like the whole block.
Basically, it's very enticing. I mean, I told Linda quite bluntly, I said, we just put a lot of investment into 2021 budget for capital projects. It's not like we're broke, we still have money. But in the lease, I asked the board to let me make reasonable offers, see where it goes. I mean, nothing's set in stone. We're not in a contract. It's just a negotiation at this point.
The location is ideal.
It is. I mean,
as far as if there were going to be any expansion of the community center, ball fields, whatever.
So, can we annex that property into town? Subdivide the house? Keep all the property around it? Sell the house?
you can, that's an option. Annex it, subdivide it, and I would say add the 4 acres roughly, the fields to the north, into our existing 15 or so acre community complex parcel.
Well, rec is always looking for places to practice, have practice and stuff like that, so.
We're always searching for ball fields. So
An opportunity there.
Build a nice soccer field out there, baseball field, t-ball field, something.
I'm envisioning a cute little
snow sled
200 foot.
T-ball field?
Yeah. I think girls softball play the same shot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely some opportunity there.
And then you can play your playground over there.
I think if we could do that, subdivide it, turn around, sell a house for around $300,000, somewhere around $200,000.
The one,
I like that idea.
the only thing that came to my mind is, how's the town going to overspend $500,000 on ball fields? So if you actually articulate some kind of profit in return to offset those costs, that might go over well. So everybody who plays sports or has kids know we don't have enough ball field space.
I know the money, not the best time, like you said, but never will be a good time,
Our fund balance right now, after approving next year's budget, is still just over $3 million.
And we can use that money for the purchase.
Not to amend the budget, that's
That's a couple clicks.
I was gonna say, it has nothing to do with
that's
it.
on my end.
Nick has got you figured out.
On your end, it's a resolution.
He just did a couple clicks.
You said 500 is low, so you can't go very much lower than that.
You can
It's
offer
your face, right?
You can offer anything. I mean, my understanding is no realtor involved. It's her and her sister. They're going to accept offers until November 2nd, on or before Monday, November 2nd. And then I'm assuming instead of just, they could just accept the largest offer they have, but they could reach out to everybody and say, who really is most interested. I don't know. it's totally up to them. So,
Well, if you write a really nice letter, they might like the idea of the town having it.
oh,
Community complex.
it's not my style, but I've got to know Lynn a little bit, and I said, man, the Dynasty ball field, just, I can't remember her mom's name, but I named one of the ball fields after her mom. I mean, she laughed. I mean, she took it in good humor. I mean, but yeah, I just feel like it's a once in a while opportunity.
I agree.
But timing's everything. So
Larry,
Yes.
Troy, Jeremiah, how do you feel?
Oh, I think it'll be a wonderful addition to
Yeah.
the property.
I think we're crazy not to pursue.
And, the other side, I mean, what Mike said about selling the house is tempting, and I see the wisdom in that too. But more, being able to control what happens there, if you own it, then, because some other buyer might have a completely other, idea in mind as to how to utilize the property, which may not be to everyone's liking as well.
and if I may throw out some wild ideas, I'm gonna ask Jan to chime in too. But we don't have a rec center. Have the property expand, more field space. Design the fields to where it could be a soccer multi-use field, but still have t-ball and other field practice field, game field space. Talk about a community garden that will have some opportunities, obviously. The house, not sure what, I've read the documentation, what kind of great shape it is, but this year especially, Jen and I talked about with the school situation with COVID, our winter sports are being, not the best term, but neglected, because they have to do their sports because they're local mall in the spring. We have no gyms. Gilco grant, gymnasium.
I've already said we did something like that. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'm just, it has more opportunity than we're just kind of brainstorming right now. It really does. I mean, that's 5 acres added. Having that detention pond right in the middle is not great, but we could probably build a bridge over it, go back and forth and stuff.
Just get over it, right? Build a bridge and do it.
So maybe we just go right there.
What about moving the detention pond, offset the detention pond where it's at now? This is just discussion.
After the fact, it could probably be redesigned, but
Move it into the back of that property.
Yeah, move it somewhere so it's kind of out of the way.
because that's about to break down here next week or two, so.
Well, we can push them to the energy park one first. And
Yeah,
go
we
from
can
there,
do that one first.
if that's a serious discussion, but,
Yeah.
because we were
Timing.
pushing them to the ball field one first, because we had told the Dynas family, sorry Troy, I just jumped in.
No, go right ahead.
We were pushing J2, our contractor that's doing the fields, to do the one behind the ball fields first, because we had told the Dynas sisters that we would be done by the end of the year. We should be done by the end of the year regardless, but we asked them to do the ball field first, so that we were done, so that whatever easement, whoever ends up buying that property isn't obligated to the town to allow that easement to continue. Now, if we buy the property, that all goes away. I'll probably, I would say, I'd force Stephen to retirement, but he's already headed that direction if we tell him we want to move that field, or move that detention pond, but,
But it runs right up to the southernmost part of the field there, right? That detention pond. It is going to be. If we're worried about it, to try to connect it in the back.
It's all connected, we bought it. I mean, we basically
Be the
annexed it
past
in,
line, right?
subdivide it however you want.
No, but the detention pond currently, let's say we do buy this property and we build that detention pond that we're about to do. I've seen where it's gonna be at, I think. And it would be not in a great spot if we're trying to connect these all east to west.
Yeah, so right now it's kind of a V that's between the properties. We bought it, we wanted to turn it back more into a rectangle on the top,
Right,
and then combine the properties together. So, because you have to throw in some parking and amenities and so on and so forth. So it's just a really good opportunity. It's a great location. We talked about it. It's just, You know, when I first talked to Linda and her and Susan, they were not knowing exactly when they may do it, this year, next, and then the last couple of weeks, when I talked to her about an issue with the temporary construction industry, she was, hey, we're putting out buyer's package. Oh, great. Timing. So,
And your,
I personally would love to get it.
your thought about, would be to pay for it from the reserves?
We would have to.
The reserve fund?
We would have to. The nice thing, I think, is enticing, this would be a cash deal. We could have a check.
What's the balance of the reserve fund?
It'll be $3 million.
It's, I have it with me here.
That's after the issue. Yeah. So we get 2.5 after
The ending fund balance after capital project we put in is $3,071,555. And then I'm looking at the blue, that first blue snapshot page on your budget. And then with reserves, it then goes down below $1 million, but in totality, it's $3 million. So you could easily take out, for example, you could take $500,000 out of the police station reserve and go buy this property.
It's Carl. He doesn't need a balance, so.
Just a couple clicks, like I said.
You're quite literally right. I do that. That's not how it works.
I'm picking up on that.
You saw me work on the screen, man.
So where do you want to start the negotiation? At what price are you thinking?
Well, the property hasn't been appraised yet, so I have a little bit of time. I'd probably call Terry Wiedemann, ask him to give a realtor value of opinion, not appraisal, to see what he thought. And if you would tonight allow me to go up to the asking price with the ability to go lower, I would actually confer with the mayor directly without being a special meeting of the board. If that's okay with you, and that's my perspective. It's not appraised. I mean, I trust Will County Assessor's Office. That's not completely accurate. So I think Terry would be able to do that within a week.
Now, is that house though? If we were to turn around and try to flip the house, subdivide and flip the house, is it on Central Well water, or are they dependent on their well?
It is on Central Well water. They have a line. They are a direct customer of Central Well, not to the town. They were a customer of Central Wells before the town had our water system in place, and they still are. That is, I don't know if we don't serve them sewer at all.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure what the subject is.
So, for some reason, I was thinking they might be sewer, but I'm not sure. And I guess
You want me to look it up?
well, I don't know if we need to right now. If they aren't on sewer, now would be the time to get them on sewer before we pave that road. So I would say if the town does make the purchase, we would definitely want to encourage, if we make the purchase, I say we abandon the septic and we connect to the sewer if it's not already connected. If we don't end up as the fortunate owners of the property, then I would say we encourage the new owners to think that direction, or at least stub something off into the property before we pay rentals, so we don't have to cut rentals to tie back into the sewer.
Do we offer sewer service to people who aren't in the town?
They pay a higher rate. Yeah, they pay a higher rate, 120%.
Correct, 120.
As long as they pay for the whole thing.
If we do that for water or sewer, if somebody's outside the town, it's 120% of what the in-town residents pay, both on the system investment fees and the service charges. We do have a couple of situations where we've got other people that are on Central Well water or on a well, but they are connected to the sewer system, and some of those, yeah, so.
But that's all I have. I mean, I just didn't want an opportunity to go without further discussion.
Well, what's the consensus?
Sounds like everybody's in favor of it.
So,
Good luck.
So I'm.
you know, when you're talking to Terry, you might just ask him if we were to subdivide this, what he thinks the house would be worth on a standard cut lot.
I think that just shoots ourselves in the foot personally if we were to do that. If we bought it and then subdivided it, we're just going back again to what we were trying to do by buying it. Because we're still getting control of that frontage of Reynolds right next to our community center.
Well, we're not giving control of it to anybody because we're going to annex it into the town first. And then.
But like
No,
Troy said, we could build a rec center there or do something like that. We could, the town could find a use for it versus have somebody live there and not have a community.
And that way the whole block is community center stuff instead of some resident in the middle of all
Right.
that.
And those are possibility discussions to be had.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
right now, how you wanna work out the details can wait. I think the consensus is, and from my understanding, is we just wanna pursue the entire property and then,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, it's an opportunity, like I said.
Gonna see how they respond to the offer you're gonna make with a
What
couple
I-
of clicks.
Yeah, what I'll do is and I don't know where, I'll call Linda and I'll just ask her directly where the asking price came from. Did they talk to somebody? To my knowledge, she didn't get a realtor. And she said the last time it was appraised was 5 years ago when her mom passed away.
Oh, and they may have some emotional attachment to the town where Dave suggested they might prefer to sell it to the town. Although
She did tell me that, you know, they would rather not deal with costs for realtors and financing, they just want to, you know, best
Cash
best
deal.
offer, yeah.
Sure.
So,
Well, that's true of any seller.
well, true. I asked the board, let me talk to Terry Wiedemann, and then I'll inform the mayor, probably in the next week or so, what the value of the opinion is, and then, but as of tonight, give me a value, dollar amount that you're willing to negotiate.
You guys wanna go above 500,000 or start right there?
And where'd this 500 number?
It's on the very top of that first page.
Well, right, but where'd that number come from?
That's what he
Somebody
did.
just pulled that out of the air?
That
That's
was
what he said.
from Susan and Linda, the sisters. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, okay. It's, say it hasn't been appraised or.
Not to my knowledge, she said she wasn't having it appraised.
No, I mean, if we can get some type of ballpark from Movement maybe, so you know, he tells us we're crazy, we pay that much. Or if he says, great, I don't know,
Okay.
but I think for right now, move forward.
500,000, so it doesn't have to come before the board again? Or do you wanna wait for Terry and then have it come before the board again?
Are we gonna meet before the closing of this?
Regardless, I'm going to verbalize an agreement if I can, and then it'll have to come back to the board at the earliest November 3rd, the day after. So I don't think it'll be that soon. I mean, she's asking for offers out to November 2nd. I'm not gonna wait till then. I wanna talk to her this week. But, I have to bring this back to the, for sale. It
Right,
has
for
to
the
go-
purchase price, yeah, but as far as like waiting to find out if it's a good or bad deal.
That, I can always call a special meeting if it's something that's really,
Oh, come on, don't do that. So we,
on a Wednesday.
do we need
No,
to
I'm
put a
just
cap
kidding.
on it? I mean, we agree 500,000 is the cap, like the top that we wanna go? Or do we wanna get like another 100,000 for a buffer? Like
Well, I
one
don't
more?
think we need to approve an amount right now,
Right.
we don't have any cut of agreement.
Right, just
Just
approve
ask
him
them.
pursuing it.
Yeah,
Just
you know,
negotiate. We're just gonna
you
take it
know,
on
get
behalf
what,
of the
get
town.
appraised and get a value and to negotiate.
Okay, I'll start with the value of opinion from Mr. Wiedemann, then I'll talk to Ms. Dunn, or Ms. Moore.
Okay.
You know, it was polled the board by telephone if there was an amount that they wanted that was over 500?
I'll more than likely just converse directly with the mayor, then she can run from there. But we don't want to have a meeting without uploading minutes.
Yeah, telephone's not a good idea.
Sunshine.
True, I stand corrected.
No, we just want it up and up all the way, so.
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Moving on to September financials. Mr. Andrews.
I don't have anything to add. On a quarterly basis, we're going to put this as an action item for any discussion or conversation the board may have. As you can see, our financials are doing fairly well so far. This is September only. Your draft budget is me estimating out what expended revenues may look like by December 31. That's a guesstimate, educated guesstimate, hopefully based upon years of doing this. So hopefully I'm wrong and there won't more revenue comes in. One thing I'll mention the last week is DOLA did approve, I did submit a grant request for the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the CARES Act, and they deposited a check of over $34,000 in their account. So that's in miscellaneous revenues. And instead of arguing back and forth of submitting something for a specific purpose, I just submitted the request, and now they'll come up at next meeting or two. You guys can decide what you want to do that month. And then I spoke with Robert Caselli. He's one of the partners with Corey Hunsucker, Pete's Investment Management, that's holding our 2-year bond. They invested our 2-year bond, which matures next month. The interest is pretty much accrued, a little over $34,000, ironically, the same as what we're getting from DOLA. He's cut the check, sending it our way. And then in December, when the bond matures, I asked him to give us the principal back, because right now, the bond amount, there you may have sneak peek, but he said right now, going for a quarter, 0.25 and 0.20, and Conservation Trust Fund is currently 0.236. So I don't know what the value is of reinvesting in a 2-year bond when it's almost comparable. So that could be another conversation, but I want to let you know that's coming down the pipe. But his comment is those rates will likely change one way or another after November 3rd. Yeah. And they're looking at the national scene, obviously. But anyway, that's all I have. I mean, not very related to financials, but it's part of it. So.
Any questions, comments, concerns with the September financials? Wayne?
Good.
Did you have anything, Wayne?
I did.
Okay.
But, oh, I know what it was. It was a bill from Northern Water for $40,000.
Probably 43,000.
Yeah, is that monthly, annual?
No, that's an annual assessment on our 860, whatever, our 857 shares. They're
850, you use the CDT.
858. And part of those shares were a certain type and part of them are another type, and so there's 2 different fees that are associated, but it's our assessment for each of those shares.
Oh.
And it's an annual assessment.
I just happened to see that number.
Yes, sir.
Opened my eyes. Got curious. Thank you, Dave. That's all I have.
All right. Perfect. Mary, we don't need to approve the financials. No. Okay. Moving on. Any other questions for financials for anyone?
I would typically, when the financials and the minutes are on consent agenda, you not approve them, but you, what's the term?
Yeah, accept them.
Accept them. So I would ask you to accept the September financials just for the record.
Okay.
Because they're already done.
Move to accept the September financials as presented. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, guys. Employee salaries and benefit discussion. Mr. Rankin.
Mr. Mayor. In your packet, Mary obtained a spreadsheet, which is basically comparable salary. We've kind of done this for years, off and on, some years we haven't, but this is just showing, given to you to show how we compare as a government, paying our employees to other similar sized governments in the area. So I'm going to actually start with the second one, which is the all white spreadsheet. This is our benefits for health, dental, and vision. This is just to show, and Mary does a great job. She does this by hand, basically. And we give this to the employees so they can show what the town is paying for them as employee only. They have up to 6 plans to choose from. The town pays the cost of Plan B. So this next year, the town will pay $642.89 a month. Is that renewal? And then the additional cost for spouse, children, and family, that comes out of the employee's pocket. That's what they have to pay in total or by paycheck. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, if I'm saying
No, that's correct.
Okay. But the employee can choose any one of these plans, but if they choose a plan like A that's more costly than what the board authorizes, then they pay the difference. On vision, the town pays, it's pretty inexpensive. The town pays the employee only at $3.60 per pay period, pretty inexpensive plan. Dental, I want to mention, I want to bring up, for some reason, for all these years, well, years ago, the town had a self-insured dental plan, which a number of years ago we disbanded. We went with a MetLife or a network like this because that plan was no longer valid, no longer legal. You can't do that anymore in the state of Colorado, back in the day. But with that plan, we required the employee to pay $18. It's a monthly or per check, Mary?
No, the town paid 18 and the employee paid an additional.
Yeah, 18 and 14. I'm asking the board not to split hairs, but I'd like to offer the employees 100% of dental as well, since we're already doing vision, and it's $15 a month, maybe, per employee. So $14.62. If that's okay with you, I'd like to just make it across the board that the town insures health, dental, vision, 100% to the employees. The employees then collect to pay for family coverage. Okay.
I'm okay with that. Everybody okay with that?
So I was gambling on it, so.
We really struggle, I don't know if there's a solution, but I really struggle seeing that our employee plus family plan is $2,000 a month.
Yep.
That's what my plan would be. That's what it costs.
Years ago, that's what the board established longevity benefit. Great for those who've been here a number of years, but not for the first 3 years, 2 years. You know, attracting somebody with a family in the first year or two is a struggle because they don't get the additional money per month until you've been here at least 3 years, 3, 5, 7, 10. But that's set in place. And I believe, going back to the first sheet, we're like one of only 2 towns that offer longevity type of benefit, which is unique. But also with, this is comparison, so you can compare. I color coded it because in my mind, I don't want to figure out where admin ends and police begin, so I do that. I did deliberately put public works in brown, that's purple, by the way.
I love it. I dirt gray.
I joked that I did this with Mary because, you know, admin were green, field cash, court police blue, rec, I have no idea whether orange, but, around.
Like rays of sunshine.
Something like that. Something like that. And then also, Larry, if I may discuss, we had a conversation last week about what does this actually going to impact the budget. So on your table, I asked Data Green to put together this worksheet. So the 1.3% is shown, that's already in your draft budget, and that's the increase. And that increased our budget $17,274 from this previous year. And then if you look, I did starting with 1% increments, 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%. You can see in that increase from current line item, that highlighted yellow, the first one at the bottom, you'll see how that impacts the budget as a total. thought that was pretty valuable. And then Larry and I talked about, well, what about our other benefit costs? Workers' comp, HERA, FEPA has increased those other benefits. So in totality, you will see the current benefit cost for all the employees is a little over $146,000, with a 1.3% COLA, it's $148,505, and then on and on and on. So the actual benefit cost is pretty nominal overall. It's the actual salary cost that's going to be the most significant increase based upon percentage that we discussed. Lastly, I wanted to show the financial stability of the budget. In 2020, our revenue was $2.835 million. In 2021, our estimate is a little over $3,073,000. Just to show that our revenues are keeping up with the additional costs that you may consider for employee raises. So, throwing those in there. I think, Larry, that's what we talked about. You wanted to make sure the board saw that, so this is what they reproduced. So I'm going to throw that out there as well. And I don't have some grandeur speech tonight for employee salaries. I ask the board every year to give them something that they're well deserving. I mean, the last 12 years, we've built up a $4 million reserve fund, which we are going to use $1 million of that this next year. We spent over $10 million in capital projects that you can see in the capital improvement plan in your budget. So we've done pretty well financially. And I acknowledge employees because they won't carry out your orders. I just have to make sure that they're done.
So that was your speech?
That's my speech. So yeah, I lied, I was speech. So I defer back to you.
Larry?
Oh. Me?
I know you're dying to say something.
Sorry? Well, the 1.3 is my estimation, that's a given. And last year's merit pay increase was 1.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Because COLA was
2.4.
exactly. You made it an even 4% or 3%. 4% total, yes.
Right. So I'd advocate for at least the 1.5% over the COLA to make the total 2.8 at a minimum. 1.7 if we wanted to do the math, and just 3% total. I think it keeps it in line with previous years, although on a separate issue related to salaries, I just want to toss this idea out. Looking at this comparison sheet to other towns, and wondered what the rest of the board would think about increasing, for instance, the police department salaries by 5% across the board before applying the cost of living rates, and to the public works department as well, David. Especially for the, I don't know if I want to exempt the department heads, but I'll at least address the remainder of the departments. The line officers, in your case, Dave, the guys who work in the shop, to bring the salaries more in line with some of these other nearby towns I know. I think Chief Dwyer's hiring procedure may be a little bit less challenging if the salary was more in line with other areas. Isn't that seem to be the biggest obstacle you're faced with?
I think salary is at the top of the list. Second would be the health insurance, but I have to warn them about it at the interview.
All right.
In the event that they're going to insure their wife or husband, kids, and
Well, even a, well, I'll just use the number 5% just as a place to start the discussion. If that was there, at least it would ease the pain of the health insurance to help offset that.
And I guess I'd have to look, how much is of a salary?
5%.
How much of a raise would that be for starting salaries?
Well,
your low one's at
full-time officer, you're looking at $2,300. It's 5% of this low end of their salary. Oh, I'm looking at, I'm sorry.
You have it listed at
43,264. So 5% of that's about $2,160 annually.
So bump it to about 45.
That would be more appetizing. That would get a lot more of attention of officers, I think, looking for a job. Absolutely.
It would be about $175 a month in round numbers.
Yeah.
As your salaries, particularly in the police department, and as well as public works, David, isn't that right? They lag behind other comparable towns in the area, and have for years.
So David, do you have all your employees, or your employees other than your department heads and stuff, all just listed as senior employees? Because right here it's listed as Tech 1, 2, and 3, but then there's obviously like a seasonal.
Right. Yeah.
But you have everybody's.
I mean, everybody's been here 3+ years. That as far, well, I guess Tony's my newest at 2.5 years. He's not quite 3 years yet, but of course he's probably being insulted if we didn't call him a senior employee just due to his age.
In public works, different places call them different things. So right here, they call it Tech 1, 2, 3. And here we're maintenance. And then we have a foreman and a director. So the terminology, I don't think I'd focus so much on as you can see what their main employees.
Well, the only reason I was asking was so like, when it's laid out like that, and I don't know, I know in some industries specific, you have to have a certain set of proficiencies before you meet the next tier. Then similar, I'm sure, like officers, right? You have to have certain credentials or certain trainings before you can move to the next ranking, right? So I don't know. I was just looking at that and thinking maybe there might have been a way to build in some additional funds there as well, as far as like when you're ranking up or increasing skills.
We do have a 1, 2, 3 level in public works that incent that they can achieve higher pay based upon certifications in water, sewer, machinery, so on and so forth. But that really doesn't apply because these guys are jack of all trades.
Right.
So they don't specialize.
Yeah, and I know a lot of them actually stay here because of that reason, because they get to kind of do everything from a public works standpoint.
Same with police, yeah.
And everybody in public works is either a 2 or a 3, and then you got your foreman and myself. So most of them are at mid or high level, and I think that's where the senior employee part came from.
Gotcha.
So
I'd like to hear what Mr. Rankin suggests.
You did that last week.
You knew it was coming.
Well, without getting into detail as far as what a certain employee makes, just in general, we start public works off at like 15, 16 bucks an hour. Police, we start off at 20 bucks an hour.
Unless you're a seasonal, then you're $22 an hour.
Unless seasonal, and that's, we have one part-time guy that doesn't get benefits, so he's seasonal. So, my thought process, and I didn't do the math by any means, and I mentioned this last year, we've been doing percentage increases for several years. I mentioned last year, if the money allows, do an adjustment, not a percentage, adjust wages. Say police's starting wage is 20, adjust to 22 starting, and then adjust the other ones above them accordingly based upon that rate increase. Same with public works.
What do we put now with regards to overtime with police?
some overtime is required, and especially when we're shorthanded, there's some overtime that's authorized for sure. There's not a maximum.
is that what you're asking? We don't have a maximum amount of overtime that is allowed.
We haven't tracked anywhere what's costing us overtime.
Annually, we budget 6% of the budget, their salary budget of overtime expenses. And the thing with
6% over what their
we
salary budget is.
yeah, David Green looks at their exact hourly rate for hourly rate at 2,080 hours a year. That's their annual salary, because they're not salary but hourly. Then we add 6% to that to make up their budget for their payroll. And the thing about the police department is that they're on the monthly payroll, so everybody gets paid 40 hours a week. They work 41, they go into overtime. Police aren't that way. They have time sheet A and B because they work rotating shifts. So basically half the squad have below 80 hours in the pay period, and agency, and this another half have above 80 hours. And then the next 2 weeks or a week it flip-flops. So they end up, they have to work 160 hours a month, which is 40 hours a week. But they work up to 171 hours of straight time before they get OT. So they work 11 hours each month of straight time above the 160 before they qualify for OT, if that makes sense.
There was a change in the Colorado labor laws with regards to overtime. Wasn't that this year, or was that?
I don't remember.
It was this year.
Yeah.
I know that it targeted specific industries. I'm not sure if it targeted police, to be honest, but
Did it affect them at all?
I don't know.
I didn't get anything from the town attorney, so I don't know. Don't track that.
Is that a fair policy? I guess maybe the chief could answer that.
I'll go back because it was approached to me when I was chief years ago. It's like, well, we don't like this schedule. And Carl may remember this. And I said, okay, I'll put you on the 40-hour week schedule. They raised holy cane because that makes them 2 days off instead of a week.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the 11-hour
But
work for free.
Straight time.
But and it's called the county rule. I'm not sure where it came from, but Wilson County basically works on the same, and that's why I adopted their schedule. So basically, the officers have 4 or 5 days off consecutively, like every other rotation. And they're actually scheduled for, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, 14-hour work days in a 20-day cycle. So they have to make up 20 hours, and there's court, overtime, extra shifts, so training. But I'm not going to change the 171 because of the way the schedule works, in my mind.
You're not requesting a change on that.
I don't see a change on that. I know where you're going with this, but Carl, I'm not going to interrupt you again, but I just want to throw that because when I first came, I put them on 3 on 3 off because they hated that with a passion. And that's when they talked me to doing it. Carl maintained that rotation. That's good.
I'm not trying to even suggest changing, I just don't quite understand why why not at 161 doesn't overtime start instead of this 170?
I'll have to research that some more, but that's one of the things because it always been.
I'm a guy carrying a gun, you can be careful saying that.
Well, I think they still like the rotation pretty much.
They like their longer weekends, and it's been that way since I got hired. I never really asked or looked into why.
Before
it is.
you,
Did they approach you with any suggestions on alternative solutions?
No, they're okay with it. I think they kind of look at it like it's okay if I have to work 168 and get 8 hours regular time, not OT, because I'm going to enjoy a big long weekend. And so they understand that they're offering up a little bit to get something in return, just the way that it falls. And once in a while they're really short hours and they have to make those up, and then other times they're kind of over, just on how it lays on the schedule every month.
The only one that would you say our SROs probably the ones that actually get real overtime because they're on the same AB schedule, but they're on a set school schedule, so they don't rotate.
Except for summertime.
Except summertime. Then during the school year, they'll probably get more overtime than the regular duty officer because of the required hours they need to work. But the nice thing about this schedule, when I adopted it, is every officer is guaranteed 2 weekends off a month. There's a lot of agencies you don't get that. Plus, if if an officer takes, and they work it out right, 9 days of vacation a month, they get the whole month off. So it's a pretty lucrative schedule.
I'm not trying to. No, I'm not talking either. I want to change it. I just don't necessarily think
I almost
we
wanted
should
to
cheat
go
guys
top.
out of their overtime.
No, fair question. And it's never been explained. I didn't mean to come across the wrong way, but it's.
But back to the request for the boosts. I agree with that. You know, I'm going to go back to the same. I feel like this is a broken record because we want you to tell us what those boosts look like. And this is why we didn't do it last year, because we didn't have the numbers of what these are going to go to.
And I look at other agencies. I've had long talks with both Dave and Carl, and we compared it to more our side. We compared more like LaSalle, 4 level, because we're in the same boat as private corporations. Employees shop. They do. They might be government employees, but that's stupid. They're going to go where the money is too. We have a great work environment. A lot of employees have stayed over the years because they like the fit here. True. I mean, I'll use Todd as an example. He's not here, but we've had long conversations. We started the same years with Carl back in 2004. You know, we found our niche. We like it. Not that doesn't mean every 2 weeks on the paycheck. You know, but like in LaSalle, for example, I use them because they're down the road. You know, they're paying
a lot more.
They're paying $10,000 a year more for officers. To be honest with you, Carl Harvey pays them all the same, regardless of years of service. I mean, he's done that for years. And that's a squabble amongst them, but it somehow works itself out. Public Works, we talked about, instead of 15, 16 bucks an hour, at least start them off at 18, 19. Because that's more comparable. Everybody wants to work at Eaton and Severance. Look at their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're bigger, obviously, but.
So I was looking at LaSalle, they're about $10,000 more in Public Works as well.
Yeah, they pay a lot more in Public Works too. I mean, you look at.
They have a lot more tax revenue.
Yeah. The thing about LaSalle, if you look at it, people may not know this, their police chief gets paid $93,725. That is Carl Harvey. He is 8% pay as police chief, 20% pay as town manager. That's how his contract reads. He is an operations manager. So that people don't always understand that, but that's why there's nothing listed for town manager in LaSalle.
Have operating budget.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Murray did a great job. We tried to find towns similar to us in size, and other towns are growing, so it's always hard. But you get the tiny ones, not tiny ones, but you throw in Alt Hudson and Kingsburg and Gilchrist, and you throw off the bell curve a little bit. So, in all fairness, I look at LaSalle pretty heavily because they compete. When I met Carl Harvey years ago, he told me he competes with Evans for cops and workers. And that's just all across the river. That's his sole competition. Because most of his employees live in that Greeley, Evans, LaSalle area. So that's where he competes. Lockwood, Severance. I don't know. Just don't have my 2 cents worth. My recommendation, if you're going to ask me for one, Spencer, is do an adjustment for employees, and then still allow a merit, so David and Carl can actually, and even Mary, can still adjust that merit accordingly to how the employees work. Some employees, as you well know, I mean, I'm not talking about anyone specific here, but some like their job, they show up, they work 8 to 5, they go home. Others come in a half hour early, they do a little extra, they stay late. Every organization has that. Internally speaking, that's kind of how we look at the merit piece of things too as well.
So if we made an adjustment, the adjustment would be flat across for all departments, right? Or can we do it per department?
Per department.
So like if I feel like, law enforcement should be paid more than public works, sorry, David, but we can make an adjustment to them specifically and then make an adjustment to public works.
Yes, because I can't, and it's not because of my background in law enforcement, I can't pay public works maintenance the same as a entry-level police officer. Different requirements, different education, different training.
What if we gave public works a bulletproof vest?
No. That's fine.
On water shut-off days, we might take you up on that.
So if we take and give everybody across the board, because you know, to be fair, the town clerk and everybody else is still, we're under everybody else. If we did a 3% increase on our salary, that's an increase of $40,000. To do a 3% increase, if we do 5% increase, it's $66,000 on the salary.
Where are you getting this?
Up our current salary of 1.5 million.
Oh, I see, you're doing your income.
Yeah, so.
You know, we go through this every year, and I think I've advocated for this before, is your town manager. Come to us with what you'd like to do for your employees. And we either say yay or scale it back.
Sure.
And you know, that's the way businesses run. We don't, I mean, we can sit here for 5 hours and say, okay, I think we should give so-and-so this much, so-and-so that much. And you know what they're worth to you. You manage them, it's your business basically. You tell us what you believe they're worth, what you believe they deserve. And rather than us to go down the line and say, well, I think we should do police 22 and public works and this and that. What you think it's worth for them right now.
Okay.
To keep these employees, to reward these employees for their service. And then we say, we agree or we don't. And
Well, that's why we kind of have a
negotiation
policy.
from there.
I mean, that's pretty much what you're saying. But
What's that?
the policy that we have, that we wrote last year, is saying that if we get an increase and then we give him an extra percentage to give him the merit base, whatever he determines he wants them, he deserves the more.
Yeah, but if we're gonna be making adjustments, I believe that we have the knowledge, the expertise to know what each of these employees maybe deserve.
No,
So if we're gonna talk about just a simple percentage and give him the ability to set merit rates, that's fine. We can do that right now. But if we're gonna make adjustments, then we need some type of proposal brought to us of what these adjustments should be. Absolutely.
So if we just give him $50,000 extra in the budget for employees, how he sees fit.
Well, I mean,
that's not based on that.
Right, I'm just throwing it.
if it requires another get together,
Mhm.
I say we get it right. You know, we could throw out a number right now, but is it going to be right?
Right, yeah.
So, I don't personally want to have another budget meeting, but at the same time, you know, I'd like to see something just proposed to us and say these are the people, this is the amount.
Well,
And
everything else is done that way, right?
yeah, I mean, it's done that way across the board with any business. And not to put more on your plate.
We have time. I mean,
Yeah.
the budget's not gonna be adopted till December
We
3rd.
can add it to the November 3rd meeting.
And
It's gonna be,
it's a, you know, it's a regular meeting at the senior center, but it doesn't mean we can't have a normal meeting. You know, the main purpose that night is wastewater utility plant, or wastewater public hearing.
And you can go down the list at that point and tell us, you know, you don't have to, you know, pick employee by employee, but tell us the reason why you feel that way. Because you're in the drive, you're in the command chair, so to speak, when it comes to this.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm not used to that, Mike. I mean, when you're on the board previously, you asked me to do that, and we had that conversation.
Yeah.
And I remember years and years ago when I was the police chief in Carl's shoes, the town spent $5,000 on this company to come in and do a survey of employees. And they did this big bump adjustment to get us comparable. And I guarantee that next year, Carl Harvey must salary his employees $5,000 a year over my jobs.
well,
And that's just the nature of the game.
yeah, looking here, it looks like even in Rock Brewery are already gonna do 3-4% increases. Like, what is it?
And it's a market, especially law enforcement. I mean, it is a vicious market for law enforcement right now, because you can't get anybody unless you take a ton of money. You know, and David showed me an assistant public works director for Johnstown. an assistant director makes way, and Johnson makes way more than David does as public works director. I mean, I'll go on and on and on. It's Johnstown, it's 25,000 people. But yeah, I'd be happy to, as far as, you know, proposing an adjustment for entry level, because that's where it starts at. And then those who are already here, their pay gets adjusted accordingly based upon that entry level adjustment. If that makes sense. And then I would recommend, don't do anything more than 1.3 COLA, make that your merit, to give your department heads some flexibility if they want to do that or not. To me, you got to leave the merit in there somehow, because non-employees are completely equal when it comes to work ethic, to be honest with you.
But the adjustment would hit every employee.
The adjustment would hit every employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like that idea. Sounds better.
Okay.
And that way you can work with your department heads too. So it makes sense to them based off of market value.
And the reason I say that, everyone, is because when when Carl and David are hiring, and David hasn't had to hire for a while, but it's usually Carl, it's always getting that job description and that ad out there, and that starting wage. And that's always the kicker. It's like, man, that's where you really realize we're below the 8 ball. We're starting off, sir, we want you to come work for Platteville for 42,000. Don't go to the south for 55. Come here for 42. Or the same with Fort Lupton. No, come here and work for Public Works for maintenance 1 to 15 bucks an hour. Forget their 22 over there. That's why you deal with.
Okay, I agree.
Right.
Can I pull back to the insurance for a second? Have we negotiated that rate? I've paid much less than that for an employee family where there was nobody subsidizing it. It was $700 a month from my employee plus family.
Yeah, this is
Public sector.
Public sector health groups, the co-op of other municipalities join.
They have similar benefits? Because that changes it very significantly.
Terrible, I can tell you.
But the less that you pay for.
And we have looked around for group discounts, because the thing is, we joined public sector health group because we used to, when I took over as manager, we used to have a broker that would shop around to each individual, like United Healthcare and Sigma. But we couldn't get great rates because we had too small an employee base. You know, the more employees, the better rate to get, because they look at your entire base. They figure 10% of your employee base may have health issues. The rest just keep pumping money in as premiums, you know.
So we are in with a co-op.
We're with the co-op, public sector health group. And
That's crazy. That is extremely nice. My wife's company has 6 people and they don't even pay that.
yeah, so
Like, that's just crazy.
It's stifling for Carl to, like you said, he has to give them sticker shock at the end of the interview.
Well, and then that's something you consider too.
Yeah.
You need to adjust that, because, and then what it's gonna be bottom line,
and
wise for the town.
and we shop around. I don't know what private companies use, but if you guys can throw me some names that aren't within the circle that I deal with as far as healthcare, I'd be happy to talk to these companies. I'd love to.
My company jumped on with ADP. I don't know if we can do that, though.
Seattle.
It's a payroll company.
Yeah,
But
Seattle.
then they also have benefits, and they get you in that co-op where you expand your.
Well, like,
Right?
you know,
Which is how you get a better rate.
when my wife worked all those years for Kroger, they were self-insured. I mean, I remember back in the day when we had all 5 boys in the house, I put them under her insurance, it was $12 a paycheck. For
Am I
full
reading
coverage.
this correctly? This is $1,000 a paycheck per family?
A month.
Oh, a month, okay.
A month.
Okay, so
Still.
it's not per pay period?
No, but that's
Okay.
still.
Yeah, that's huge.
So it says 921 per pay period, right?
I'm going all the way
Yeah.
down.
That's per pay, that's,
Yeah,
That's per pay period.
so it's $2,000 a month, right?
Okay.
$2,000 a month is what our employees are paying for family health insurance. I want that, everyone to really take that in.
That's why,
That is crazy.
that's why most employees don't put they put them on their spouses. Or they'll get a different health care plan for their children only. They won't put them on the company. I mean, the coverage is pretty good. I mean, I don't.
It better be.
Should be for that price.
I mean, United Healthcare is not bad, and we have some plan options, but the cost is pretty extreme. So I'll
I know your
look at
hands are
that.
tied on that, but you should try to shop around and supplement it somehow, I don't know. Put that, like Mike said, put that in your proposal.
More than likely, I will come back to the board on November 17th with this information. So I'm not feeling rushed, and the salaries don't bother me as much as I need time on the healthcare policy. Because we honestly, Mary and I have looked over the years. We've talked to different companies. We go to CML, they always promote. We went to CEBT, which CML promotes as a different healthcare. We tried them for 1 year. Horrible coverage, and they jacked us through the roof the second year on premium. And then Mike Root was the chief years ago. When he was in Elizabeth, he had heard of public sector health group. Same thing. There's a bunch of municipalities that were tiny that couldn't compete in the market. They consolidated and basically formed this organization, this co-op, and that's where we joined. And our rate increase this year was like 1.9, which is, as a rate increase, I've never ever seen that. Never been below 4 until this year.
So, you brought up ADP. The town can't participate with the payroll company?
I've never looked into that, I'll be honest with you, Mike.
I mean, you saving money on administrative at that point too. You know, it's a hassle. You know, if the insurance is gonna save you that kind of money.
I've just never known a town to do that. I just don't know the details
I
of
was
that.
curious to know if they deal with para versus Social Security, like how, maybe they do, I'm sure they do.
Because we're dealing with para, that would be a.
It's definitely worth a phone call.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it because, that's a huge underlying cost as a deterrent for recruitment too.
Yeah.
That is big. I mean, I can speak from my own experience. Until recent years, I had my kids under my wife's insurance.
I have a website on it, so it's at least worth a call.
Great.
Government agency.
What was that
There you
again?
go. ADP.
ADP, yeah.
What does that stand for?
I don't know, American Direct Payments, something
Okay.
like that.
Mary?
It's huge.
It's a nationwide company.
Yeah.
Group.
My wife
Yeah.
uses ADP.
Is that who she goes to?
Well, but she uses private health.
Private?
Yeah, but they use ADP for payroll and everything.
I bet Dad wouldn't mind not doing payroll anymore.
Yeah, Mary. What would you'd have all that free time.
I'd still
all our
do
My
meals.
wife has it. She loves it. She does all the direct deposits. They do everything. They pretty much do everything for you.
They just tell you.
You just
every
make
week
sure
how
the
much to
money's
send
there when they need it, and
You send them a check.
yeah.
And they offer the health coverage, and it's decent health coverage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's worth checking, if they'll do the 2 retirement.
That's the biggest hassle is paramedic.
There's a lot of red tape here, I get it, but at least make the call.
You said they're already shown that they do government agencies, so they're familiar with para then.
Or at least
Well,
Not necessarily
No.
in Meade, we didn't have para.
Really?
most government agencies don't, that's mostly schools.
Who did Meade have for health coverage?
But,
We did CEBT.
We
Ew.
do. I'm sorry.
but
They
ADP
had
doesn't
switched
run
in
our
the end,
retirement
so
plan.
it was a catch-22, because in Meade I didn't pay anything for I paid nothing for my insurance, and then my family the town paid 50% of it, and then with CEBT, they had these, wellness clinics. So when your kids woke up and had a sore throat, pre-COVID, and you were like, oh, I think they have strep, they got you in that day, and it was free, you didn't have any co-pays.
That's what they were counting as.
The downside to it was when you had an incident that you needed to go and when you were doing things that were gonna go towards your deductible, it was a higher deductible, it was $4,500 for it, so. I would say on the insurance part, while the numbers seem high, I actually switched, after this past year, I switched and went to Plan A, which is the most expensive plan, simply because of the lower deductible, the $1,000 in-network, and then the reduced costs on the co-pays and the prescription, just because I have children that something goes wrong, they get the freaky weird thing that's gonna cost a lot of money to fix. So for me, it was nice to have these plans. With CEBT, you had the choice of Kaiser or the PPO that they offered. So it was like, what's the lesser of the two evils?
Yeah. And what we've done in years past, Spencer and the board is we've called other towns and just asked them, who do you use? And that's kind of how we looked around, so to speak. Definitely never go back to a broker. That was a nightmare. Our rates are always 12 to 20%. So. But yeah, I'll definitely take a look, and I know last time we took a hard look at what was out there and talked to the town manager in Frederick. I don't remember what coverage they provide, but they paid obviously 100% for employees. What they did is they paid for a family network. Is called actually my doctor is there. It's NextEra Health. It's based out of they have a Longmont and Dacono and Greeley office, and they pay a flat fee of like $300 a month, and the family can go unlimited to go see the doctor for any kind of ailment, for your prescriptions, sniffles, and it's unlimited. And that's not how they provide the family health care. I mean, they didn't do major medical, but you know, it depends on how you use it. When you have small kids, you're always doing, you know. But when you're older kids, you know, that's when they get the really expensive things that happen to them, you know. So, I mean, this I'm not serious, but it goes back and forth. Depends on how you use it. That's why we offer different plans. Like
I agree with what Janet's saying. It's nice to have some versatility, but still, if she could pay $1,000 less than that and have some options, I don't think anybody would complain.
Yeah. One thing I want to add to this is, you know, we go back and forth that, yeah, it's great for recruitment and retention of those who have families that want to put them on health care. But the majority of our employees, based upon the makeup of the history, they just take the town coverage and they don't take the family, and they're okay with that. So what I'm saying is not going to put a lot more in their pocket until time goes by.
Absolutely right.
I mean,
this wouldn't be the adjustment.
This is a long-term issue. The salary is a short-term issue. Okay, I just want to be clear on that. Okay, I have my marching orders. All right. Thank you.
Alright. Moving on to reports. Janet?
You have before you the recreation and senior report for October. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
My neighbors down the street said they love flag football.
I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from it. November.
They said their last game they didn't get to play because of the smoke from
smoke.
Boulder, but other than that, they said great turnout. They loved working with Rich. So.
Yeah, not a single parent complained about like, oh, for how much money it costs. I'd say for the most part, the response that I got is, please don't make us go back to the league that we were in.
Well, because the league that you were in, you played only for Buckton because well, Central got rid of theirs. So.
Yeah, I heard a lot of positive as well.
That's awesome.
Good move.
Yep. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
And I did actually, we had our in-season volleyball celebration on Saturday night, and I did actually get a lot of parents that were happy that we at least offered the program, even though their child didn't have to wear a mask to play. Said it wasn't the end of the world. You know, they survived with the 1-to-1 parent ratio of coming in. So for the most part, they didn't feel like it was as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Any more questions?
I see you got Jerry roped into coaching some basketball too.
After the first game, he was like, wow. Like herding cats.
That age group, yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think he was voluntold.
Probably.
Well, and it's funny because I had 2 responses. I just got a call from a parent asking if we could shorten practice because he only has 1 night a week that he can practice, and so they were doing it from 5:30 to 7 because it's only 1 night. The league says you can have 2 hour-and-a-half practices for that age group, which in my mind is insane, but so this mom called and said, it's just too much time. Is there any way you can shorten it? It's just too long. He's tired. And then I got the other parent who called and said, well, Jerry's going to need to find another day to fit practice in because we were told we get 2 days of practice and they really need to be practicing 2 days a week for an hour-and-a-half a day. And I'm like, the NBA is not here watching. There's no scouts, first and second grade.
Oh.
That's just mom and let the kids have the house. You never know, those agents might be in the stands.
Yeah. So yeah, not now. If the 1-to-1 ratio,
Right.
they can't come in. I was just trying. Well, I was just trying to think of a way that I could go and watch. I'm like, is it enough to say I'm the director from Platteville? That's our team. Or do I have to say I'm with the coach? I'm his +1.
Yes.
Until he lets someone else be his
I'm here to watch
+1,
the
and I'm
coach.
like, okay.
All right, thank you, Dina. Moving on to Chief Weather.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing. Yeah, be happy to answer any questions you have. For hiring, but we may hold off on that in light of this evening until maybe looks more appetizing. And so maybe hold on that for a little bit. We're surviving well, and as long as we don't start losing a whole lot of other cops, we'll be fine.
Does it calm down out on the street and the highway? I haven't heard a lot of accidents.
No, it really has. Unfortunately, we've had some stuff happen in town. A couple cars got stolen, which we've recovered all but one. That's your friend on River, or I think he's your friend. So his has not been recovered yet, but the other 2 has. But yes, a lot less accidents. So we're just waiting for snow to start, and hopefully those are going to spike back up, but we'll see.
And a burglary at Grass Bus, I understand?
Yes. So they were hit a year ago. They went in a side window, and they went in that same unlocked side window the second time. Unfortunately, got away with $800 cash. Whoever it was knew exactly where it was. We're looking at all options here. No alarm system that morning wasn't on.
It ran to a kid the other day.
Yeah.
He was telling me about it.
Yeah. So we have to do our part.
I was
lock
out of town.
our stuff, and
I was out of town at the time.
that's why it happened.
Oh, that's just another
He's just
suspect.
making a public announcement.
It's a alibi. He wasn't here, he doesn't know where, but he was
Yeah.
here.
He's getting his eyes checked.
That's right. I was reading the chart.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, Mr. Brand?
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I've got a couple of minor things to add. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for your consideration of the salary stuff tonight and the suggestions to the town manager. I appreciate that, and I know the public works staff does. So we've got a meeting tomorrow, Troy and I do with JBA. That's a pre-con or a pre-bid meeting. Last Thursday, the 30% design contractor manager at risk went out to the RFP went out. We have had quite a bit of interest. Mary, you said 11 had looked at the site that Mary published it on. They direct emailed it to 8 or 9 other general contractors that do this type of work in the area and are pre-qualified, and that kind of thing. So we don't know exactly what to expect, but it is a mandatory pre-bid for them to submit a bid on November 4th. They have to be at the meeting tomorrow, so I suspect we'll have, 6, 8, 10 contractors at the meeting tomorrow, just so they at least have the door open to place a bid in the next couple of weeks. So that's positive steps.
Can I ask one question on that, Brian?
Absolutely.
Do we have to take the lowest bidder in this Seymour thing? As I think I understood it, is that whoever comes in the lowest is ultimately who's going to win. It's not like some of our bids where we get to decide if they're the most qualified, or we like them because they're in Platteville. In this process, it's the lowest bidder. Is that not true?
Yeah, that is not my understanding. It's my understanding that it's very similar to how we normally do it. The lowest bid does not constitute that you have won the bid. It's got to be qualified individuals, finances, location, all that kind of thing ties into it. So it was a 131-page spec or something like that that went out as part of this, and I, to be honest with you, did not read all of it. JVA has done this enough that, in the way it was worded, I don't believe we have to take the absolute lowest bid. Now, the other side of the coin, Spencer, and part of what JVA is going to explain on the 17th when we are proposing the acceptance of a proposal from one of the contractors. They're going to give us a price to come in and help us finish from 30% to the 100% design or 95% design. And then JVA has had several experiences where that contractor ends up being the contractor that builds the project, and they give you a maximum price for that project. And if there's significant changes where the town would normally see a change order or something else, because the contractor was on board helping put the whole thing together, that's where the construction manager at risk comes in. It's their loss to eat to make sure it works the way it's supposed to work when it happens. Now, they have had more, I want to say Simon told me that they're in the 75 to 80% range where they bring somebody on board at the beginning, and that's the contractor that's on board when the project is finished. Now, they have had a few where they brought a contractor on board and helped finish the design, and that contractor gave them a price. It's this much for us to help finish the design process. They got to the end, they didn't feel like the municipality and the contractor were seeing eye to eye, so they cut a check to the contractor for the $40,000 for helping with the design work. And they went to, in most of those cases, they could directly go out to bid at that point because they've got a biddable spec that they could just go out and get somebody to bid it. But what they did was they went to contractor number 2. They had liked both A and B. They chose A for this reason, but it ended up not working out all that great, so they touched base with B, and B was willing to pick up the project and work with them to finalize that, and then became their construction manager. So it's my understanding that it gives us a lot of options. So it's the first time Troy and I have ever been involved with it. Steve Butheris, I want to say Alt or Pierce, Alt I think used it last year or 2 years ago and had really good results with it. So and this tends to be the way that JVA is going with most of their projects because it gives the municipality a firm price tag that we're dealing with. So it's my understanding they put the bid out that this is a $4.9 million project. Which is what they told the contractors was what we were looking at. We were staying under a $5 million project. So,
thank you, sir.
Does that, no, don't apologize. And I'm sure that was clear as mud. When JVA is here, they'll be able to clear that up even more because they've got more experience with that. All of the concrete patching was finished up at the end of last week. All of the asphalt patching was finished up yesterday. As far as the patching around town, Coronado Park and other side streets, we did get a patch or a skim coat going up Cemetery Hill for about 475 feet up there. So we got rid of the majority of the minefield. I'm not going to say we got rid of all of it, but we got rid of the majority of it going up that hill. When Martin Marietta finishes the pavement north of the lagoon and then finishes 22.5 going out to 21, it won't be next week, but I think the following week is when the striper will be in to do that striping work out there, and we're going to get them to go ahead and restripe coming down from the cemetery to 85. Since the board has approved the redoing of Grand Avenue here next year, I'm not going to spend the money to stripe that portion for now, and we'll just work that into the bid when we redo the work there. So for the time being, for the next couple of weeks, you may hear somebody complaining that we don't have any stripes going up the hill. We're just waiting to get the contractor in here to get it done. We're going to let Martin Marietta pay the bill for the mow-in fee, and he's just going to come up and stripe that for us. So that is going on. It looks like, unless we get any inclement weather, that we should be done. They're hoping by Friday afternoon to be finished up with the last lift going all the way out to 21. They were, when I went out there at 4:30 this afternoon, they still had about 100 yards of the westbound lane, the eastbound lane, that they were laying the last of the leveling coat, and they were putting an 1.5 inch leveling coat or a fabric over the existing pavement that was there, a support fabric, laying an 1.5 inch leveling coat, and then they're going to come in with 2 more lifts over the top of that. They're planning, if things go well and go according to plan, they're planning to pave our section north of the lagoon tomorrow, and then hoping to finish up the last 2 lifts Thursday and Friday if the weather stays decent, so that they can, it keeps the temperatures high enough for them to go ahead and pave. So.
And so you're all aware, I'm telling everybody the end of October and next door. Okay,
So
so you know why I'm doing that.
Which, thank you very much. And once the racetrack gets reopened, let Adrian know, so she can say, go.
Start
pretty much.
Well, and I was only slightly joking in a text to Adrian that I'm guessing somebody that's on next door will be complaining about how fast the traffic's moving on that road once we get the barricades down.
Well, and about that time, I'll stop going through Johnstown and getting all the way to the detour and saying, damn it. Go all the way to 66 and back around.
Sorry, Mike. Janet's in the same boat right now. So.
And Barry.
I don't have anything else to add right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
I like that little corner of asphalt you put there on the 32.5 in Occidental.
Oh, yeah.
That was, you always had to take that corner out, otherwise you're in that gravel and, yeah, so.
And St. Vrain Companies, they're out of Longmont, the company that did the patching for us. There were several patches where he was like, David, what you had laid out was stupid, so I made it bigger and squared it up. And I'm like, dude, I am saying, he said, I didn't charge you anything extra, but that was stupid the way you laid that out. And like on that corner, I had only called for 5 inches. He's like, you need at least 8. You got semis going over that. So he says, I just stuck 8 in there and I didn't charge you extra.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I make that right turn,
yeah,
hit or go wide and
so.
Yeah.
Seems like they did a good job.
They are the city of Longmont's on-call asphalt service and have been for a number of years. But his pricing, I have a hard time going with somebody else. He gives us quality work and his pricing is fair. So.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, do you have an attorney or a report from the attorney on any of that? Have we heard anything regarding professional care?
I spoke with Kenner today. She decided to, her name is Allison, and she needs a little more time, so I want to make sure, because I told her that our goal was to potentially dissolve the fund and apply that toward the new east side of the cemetery. So she's making sure, I sent her all the information that we had. Found the ordinance from 19 what is it?
35 or something.
35 or something, yeah. Sent all the information to her, and she just needs a little more time because this was a kind of thrown on her as a project, and she's a project she has to meet. So, I have that to you for next meeting.
Fabulous, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. Mr. Rick.
Really all I probably know in the budget most of the time last month. Also, Ken, I confirmed that 10% of non-enterprise funds can be applied towards lowering that capital cost to pay that wastewater facility down. So the $500,000 we put back in college trust, we can apply that when the time comes.
Not for a year.
Nope.
Capital, it's just one
It's
time.
a total. So she researched it, and it's a $5 million plant, $4.9 million plant, hopefully. We could use $500,000, we apply for it.
409.
Okay.
Cool.
Really all I want to add is we're winding down the year. Next meeting, November 3rd, election night. This room will be a polling place, will be at the senior center at 7 o'clock. Typically we cancel meetings on election years during the election. We need to have a JVA public hearing for the wastewater facility. That is required. And
It's
then
part of our state revolving fund.
State revolving fund.
Requirements, so.
And then, also, the mayor's gonna make an appointment for the planning commission that night on the third, but it'll be relatively short.
Do we have anybody yet?
We have one. Then the 17th November, 6:30, we have planning commission meetings, and followed by a 7 o'clock board meeting. Planning commission to hear some tweaks in agriculture holding and residential estate zoning, which I think you'll like, the planning commission like, because it actually meets what's better, what's on the ground, instead of not, which I hate. And then I'll talk to the board about selling healthcare. And then on December 1st, we adopt the budget. I have till December 15th. I don't never wait till the statutory deadline, so we'll do it on the 1st. And if we don't have anything scheduled pressing on the 15th, I'm gonna ask the mayor to cancel the 15th meeting, so we're down to about 3 meetings for the rest of the year. So, I know we've had a lot, but pays dividends when it comes to holiday season time, so.
It's
yeah.
been the most painless budget season I've been through.
This is the most
I agree.
probably streamlined, organized process. Getting out here about 8:30 almost every night was nice, and from now on I will start. And it didn't work that way for me years ago, Mike. As far as salaries for employees, I was like thrown out of the room and they just, debated.
Yeah.
But finances were much different, and I will let you know. I mean, I'll present something to you, but I keep in the back of my mind that before we do capital projects, we had $245,000 revenue or expenditures in operations. So that's the number I'm looking at that I cannot. I mean, obviously I'm going to go over that, but that's reality to me. That's our operations. If revenues come in the way I anticipate they will be, and like I indicated, I really did not build into our sales tax 7-11. I did that intentionally. I don't want to be surprised. The sales tax is based upon what we're currently getting. So that actually goes in as a soft opening around the 1st of March of next year. I mean, they already have the footers for the building frame today. It looks like they're ready for concrete.
The caissons are in for the canopies, for the gas canopies. Sewer lines all in, grease trap is all in. All the electrical underground stuff I think is in.
Tanks are in?
Tanks are all in.
Yeah, those were in, I think when I went to those were like the first thing to drop.
Yeah.
That first week.
Yeah, they're rolling. Hey, the project manager over there, they gave me 90 days from September 1st.
The civil engineer told me soft opening March 1, then project manager told David something different, so. Shit.
Maybe it's like the end of October, the road a little bit kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Wow. One question on sales tax. I heard on the Weld County Facebook thing that they've been doing that oil and gas sales tax revenues are 2 years in arrears. Is what they said.
At sales tax?
Yeah, like like you have to plan it ahead. So what we're getting, what they made it sound is the way what they're getting now is from like 2 years ago. So the downturn that we're experiencing now, we're really not gonna see the effects of it
I'm
until
not.
23.
Property tax, of course, is a year. I'm not aware that would go
Sales,
gas.
and sales tax we get from the state of Colorado, not Will County.
Yeah.
Right, and I didn't understand that a whole lot, that's why I was a little confused.
That doesn't make a lot of sense because based upon actual production at the time.
But they justified it, that's why they're going, they justified it, they're building their budget as a 3-year budget instead of a 1-year budget because of this, potential shortfall.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
And I've been in budgetary classes where, the board will actually adopt a 3-year budget, and then they just pretty much ratify it if the numbers come in. I've never been able to do that because it's the oil and gas town, and the peaks and valleys are too unpredictable. Better now than they have been, but, when I first came here, things were starting to be, built up, and then 08, 09 hit, and then, of course, that's when I took over as manager, and then things were different. I had to cut $100,000 on the budget operate. So we do it annually. I mean, I look ahead, but I'm not going to take that risk. I just don't do
I guess I wasn't saying, I was just asking, do you foresee, is that true, do you foresee, like,
I've never
in a
heard
couple
of
of years, we're gonna see this downturn? Because oil and gas got hit hard, right? But our budget didn't get hit as hard as oil and gas got hit.
No.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm just worried, like, is it coming down the road that we're gonna see some sort of catch up?
I read a lot about CML, and they put out some good information on the economy, and I haven't seen anything like that regarding a huge lag on sales tax on oil and gas. I just haven't seen that, and I hope I'm right and you're wrong. Okay, so, but, and what I have heard is, as far as oil and gas concerned, national policy, next 2 weeks, policy could change. And that's just the reality of that industry that we're dealing with. And that's a direct impact on Platteville. So.
As does climate change.
It all, but solar panels don't bring me revenue. So, I get it.
That's what we could do, we could lease out that property and do solar.
No, sewer. The old lagoons at the sewer lagoon. You can put solar in there, hopefully.
Any other questions from Mr. Rankin? County dinner is next Thursday at 6 p.m. Did everybody RSVP who wants to go? Town and county dinner. We have a dinner with Weld County, and they go
with commissioners and then other elected officials. They have a dinner and they talk about whatever county.
Seems pretty formal.
It's pretty bad.
The rubber chicken
So
circus.
everybody RSVP who wants to go?
Not yet.
Okay.
RSVP me.
It's a chance for you to
Okay,
talk
so
to
my-
commissioners and listen to what other communities are doing.
That's good, right?
No, I'm not gonna go.
That the county.
You can't bring your spouse.
Now they'll take it this year.
Okay, just a reminder.
Nope. not-
No?
Nope.
Okay. I'll send them a check.
No, we're all elected officials. It's pretty
Okay.
Yeah, because you only have to pay for your spouse, your spouse can't go this year.
Yes, that's can go this way.
I did talk to the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee a little bit, and I got a little, it might be a heartbeat there for trying to work on, Troy had sent an email proposing that the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee try to spearhead the playground equipment. And then Rebecca sent back a grant opportunity that we could potentially try to match some of those funds, so if she wants to run with that, I'm certainly willing to help her.
Good.
Can't go wrong trying.
Yeah.
So, probably the study session at the end of the month.
Okay, and just so my staff's in the loop, so we can tell them, but I'm asking Spencer, the PTT, David, primarily is to select the replacement for Lincoln. They kind of went down the road to grant already for the big playground that we budgeted. And Jan and I asked them to kind of look at what we have for space and room, and not really just stick a playground somewhere, but actually look at some amenities that the kids might like that's going to fit with our schematic down there, because it's not a lot, the room behind the committee.
If you could send us a map of where the location ends up for grabs, I think.
Sure.
That would be beneficial.
Okay, and when do you think it'll be?
We're gonna try and have a study session at the end of October. And I'll
Okay.
follow up with Mary. That's coming up quick. I know.
Yeah, that's like
It might be the
next
beginning
week.
of November.
Okay.
Soon,
Okay.
alright? Jeez. I did my best here.
We appreciate it, Spencer.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Frank.
Now somebody come tell me how to use this damn computer.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Now, that's kind of one of those cut them belt. Let you figure it out. So that's one of those cut them